Welcome to Al Bernstein Unplugged Unboxing. In a 40-year Hall of Fame career, Al has chronicled some of the greatest moments in boxing history. On this podcast, you get to hear him expand on those memories and talk about the current news in the sport of boxing. You also hear Al interview some of the biggest names in the sport. Here's Al Bernstein Unplugged.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of this show. And on this one, we have a very special guest. Teofimo Lopez is going to be joining us in just a little bit. He, of course, is the IBF lightweight champion and has the mega fight coming up on October 17th with Vasily Lomachenko. Honestly, one of the most anticipated fights boxing fans have had for a while, and it should be a good one. Now, we also will be taking your questions. You were all very active in sending me questions on Twitter, at Al Bernstein, where you can continue to do so. And we try to get as many of them in as possible. Let me welcome in my co-host, my good friend Trip Mitchell. Trip, how are you?
I'm doing great, Al, and I'm excited. The Al Bernstein corporate jet, instead of flying to Connecticut, is going to be heading down to the great state of Texas. Tell me about that.
Yes, it is gassed up, and Captain Paul picked that out of the air. If I had one, I think it would be with a Captain Paul. Okay. I believe that's what it would be. Anyway, the jet's gassed up and ready to go to San Antonio. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. They moved the Gervonta Davis-Leo Santa Cruz fight to October 31st, Halloween, and it will be held in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome and will include live fans. That'll be the first fight that will include live fans. I know they're going to be very careful about the way they position the seating to have some social distancing, and we'll see how the whole thing plays out. But very excited to do that fight. And I haven't decided yet what my costume will be on October 31st. Now, I know that some snarky person is out there saying, gee, why don't you come as a sportscaster?
Well, how many boxing
I did that before anyone else could do it.
Okay, well, good. You take it away. But how many other boxing commentators could ride a rodeo? You know, you've been to rodeos. You love doing it. Could you ride in? Would that be appropriate?
Maybe that would be good. You know, I have to see. We did once on a show, ESPN Top Rank Boxing Open. We did an open in which I rode a horse. We were up at Gardnerville doing it was called the Cow Patty Boxing Festival, believe it or not, in Gardnerville, Nevada. And they would do it outdoors in this, just outdoor area, like a field. And they came up with the idea of having me on horseback, and they would shoot me and Barry, and it looked like Barry was on a horse, but he was on a fence. And when we got done with the open, they pulled away. I was on the horse, and I said, okay, we'll see you in a little bit. And I raced off, and Barry was sitting on the fence. He got off and walked into a limousine and then left. So that was our open we used to do some wacky things on the Top Rank Boxing. I'd like to get a hold of that open. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Well, my advice to you is to write a book about that, because that would be a heck of a story. The first years of ESPN and you guys were the brand ambassadors for ESPN for a lot of years before they got the bigger sports.
It's true. Well, yeah, when we at the beginning it was monster trucks, tractor pulls, and boxing. So
and not in that order.
I guess I drew the long straw because I got to do boxing, but it was so it was an interesting time, to be sure.
Yeah, and we've talked before. We're going to get to the questions real quick, but you've done basketball for ESPN. Did you ever want to do football for them?
You know, I would have, but I didn't think. I always felt basketball was a stronger sport for me to do. I hadn't really done that much football elsewhere, and I didn't want to fail on that platform. So I was content to do the basketball I did. If pressed, I would have done football, but basketball was a better fit for me, and I had done it before, so I felt more confident doing it. But it was fun. I mean, that's you've announced all different sports, and it's just college basketball there's nothing much more fun than that.
Well, there isn't, and it goes real quickly. And speaking of going quickly, we've got some great questions. This is coming from David Roof, and I'd be interested in your thought about what's next for the future of boxing, Jamal Charlo, versus in a matchup against Canelo. And then a second part of the question, curious if Katie Taylor might get a chance to fight against Armanda Serrano in the future.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, of course, Katie Taylor was supposed to fight Serrano, and that fight was all but made, and then it fell apart. And then Taylor went on to fight and win against Pearson. And so I think the question is, can they get past the issues that ended up surfacing with Amanda Serrano? She was not happy with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing and the way they handled everything. And so I don't know if they can get past all that, but it would be a terrific fight for sure. And I tweeted the other day that Matchroom Boxing is doing a lot for women's boxing. And what was the other part?
And the other part is Jamal Charlo versus Alvarez.
Oh, Jamal Charlo, yeah. That question was a minute and 10 seconds ago. So how am I supposed to remember that? It was forever ago. Now for Jamal Charlo, he's once again, after they got the Derevyanchenko match, which he won, and it was a terrific fight, and he fought extremely well in it. Now he's back to the same old, same old. Can they figure out a way to bridge the divide between promoters and networks for him to get one of the top middleweights in the ring with him? Obviously, Canelo is what everybody wants. And Charlo and Ronnie Shields, his trainer, have made it clear they would fight at any weight, up to 168 pounds to face Canelo. So he'll be pushing for that fight. And, they hope they can get him in against the top middleweight.
Okay. And another women's boxing question from our buddy Anthony. Why do you think it's been so tough for Clarissa Shields to get fights?
Well, part of it is that her end of the women's spectrum, she's a little higher in weight class. It's not as deep as it is in the lower weight classes. And almost everybody that's a big name in the sport is going to have to come up a division or two to face her. So she's kind of stuck in the wrong spot. That's a big part of it, And so if you're going to take the risk, it really has to be worthwhile for you to take the risk if you're, at a lower weight class to go all the way up to where you need to face her. She needs to hope that some more depth can be developed in her weight class. Hopefully that's going to happen. The women's boxing's made a lot of strides, but the place where it still has an issue is in some weight classes there's just not a lot of depth. So she's in some ways she's kind of a victim of circumstance.
And you were nice enough a number of years ago to insist that I get an interview with Clarissa at the MGM when she was on the U.S. Olympic team. What a delightful young lady, and she's had an amazing career.
Yeah, she's helped redefine women's boxing right now, I've announced several of her fights, and it's been a great experience. Now, I have not called any of Teofimo Lopez's fights. However, I have enjoyed them from afar, and we were privileged to get a chance to have me chat with him. And what I found in this interview, and I think you'll find, is, we all know that Teofimo Lopez, who is a very flamboyant figure in the ring, sometimes outspoken out of it. But the Teofimo Lopez that you'll see in this interview, I think, is a very thoughtful and ingratiating young man. Not saccharine or not somebody that's not saying what they think, but somebody that is really giving you thoughtful and oftentimes insightful answers. So here is our chat with the IBF lightweight champion getting ready to face Vasily Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez. Teo, you have been in a boxing journey since you were so young. And can you even remember a time when you weren't a boxer, or can you remember a time when you didn't think you were going to be a boxer for most of your life?
I remember there's a video there that my father has. I was 2 years old, and he put on some boxing gloves on me, and I was punching him in the face. Um, but I think around the time where I was anywhere from 4 on, I didn't think I would be boxing, and but I guess at the age of 6, it ended up coming back to me, and I think that's when, ever since that day, and that I went into a boxing gym again and started hitting the pads and stuff with the coach. That's when everything changed.
What age did you know and say to yourself, okay, I think this actually is going to be a profession for me. This can be something I'm going to, of course, you were a brilliant amateur fighter and had a great amateur career. And at that point, you were probably thinking, but when was the first time you thought to yourself, maybe the word boxer is going to define me as when I become an adult?
It's so tough at this time now, thinking about it. Just I guess I never knew, I just always went to competitions, big national tournaments and stuff like that in the US, and went around all those areas, silver gloves, golden gloves. And just, little by little, I guess, you start realizing some things like, hey, yeah, you can be. I guess when I was once I started sparring with the pros, that's when I was like, you know what, I like, and I was around like 13, 14 years old. And, and that's when I realized, I was like, you know what, I think I could definitely take this to a next level. And, but then my confidence and everything built up throughout the years. And then by the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, I just stopped getting nervous. Every fight that I had afterwards, that's when I started winning the national golden gloves, the Olympic qualifiers, and outstanding male boxer the whole tournament. That was in Colorado Springs for the Olympics, going for the 2016 Olympic Games. And then the Olympic trials I also won. And I was just on the road, man.
Yeah, your amateur career was extraordinary. So there's a big upside to that. And then there's, I don't want to say a downside, but you were so active in boxing, and boxing was such a part of your life, and you kept succeeding, and you got into the pro ranks and you succeeded extremely well early. And that kind of put pressure on you, didn't it? It made life kind of a grind, I think, a little bit for you, and some of the comments you've made and some of the features I've seen done on you. You kind of hit a little bit of a wall, didn't you, just emotionally, and you had to kind of recalibrate things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's overwhelming at times, so I just had to learn how to be like water,
Yeah,
just
right.
And just go along with it, understand it, and just this is only gonna make me stronger. And that's what I took with it, and we're here today, couple more weeks till I shock not the world. I'm just gonna say it's when I get to let everyone know that I am the truth. I am what I say I am, and that's the best fighter of this time.
Yeah, that's, of course, your fight with Vasily Lomachenko, and we're going to get to that in a second. You and your father have taken this journey together, this boxing journey, and boxing father-son teams are now more common again in boxing, and that kind of pairing comes with many, many advantages and a couple of disadvantages. How have you guys been able to navigate through that journey with a father-son relationship that has to also be a business relationship?
Yeah, at times it could definitely be difficult. It's never an easy road for when it's father-son duos and they're, coach and boxer at the same time, coach and fighter. It could be difficult, but I think it was, I had a lot of thinking to do, and I had to realize, hey, like, listen, that's just right now he's being my coach. Right now he's proud. I'm always going to think about that he's always proud of me, and that he's always going to push me to my limbs as much as I can, until I can't. But I think the understanding part, he knows me now where I'm much more outspoken on a lot of things, and I'll say, hey, coach, listen, like, if something's bothering me, I'll be like, listen, this is bothering me. Can we just focus on something else? And he'll say, yeah, all right, let's do this then. And it's worked throughout the years. And I think that as we keep going on in this course, in this path, like the way we're going in this path, I think we're just going to get better and we're going to understand each other a lot more. So it's been great, man. But definitely hasn't been an easy task. It definitely hasn't.
So you had to evolve a little bit to the point where you felt more comfortable speaking out or just saying something, because after all, it's your dad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had to. I was like, hey, listen, when we're in here, I call him coach. When we're in the boxing, we're in the boxing
good point.
gym. Yeah, so that's the only way I could be able to separate the both. Separate the two, and that was it. So I just call him coach, and hey, coach, can you come over here? I need this and that, and we work on a lot of drills and a lot of things, and then once we're out of the ring and out of our sport, of course that's my father. Hey, Dad, love you. Things like that, and it's worked. It's worked throughout that, and I definitely had to evolve in that.
It sure has worked, and. Your fight with Richard Comey, for people that are hardcore boxing fans, they understand the significance of you beating Richard Comey to win a world title and the way you did it. And I think for more casual fans, they need to understand that was such a significant win, because Richard Comey is an excellent fighter who had not ever suffered the kind of knockout defeat that you gave him. That must have given you tons of confidence moving forward.
Richard Comey is a tremendous fighter. Absolutely has, and it's not. I know that he'll definitely come back to go for another world title shot again. And I know that he'll achieve that goal. And he's fighters like that, man. Of course, it definitely lets you know and lets you understand that, hey, look, like, you are what you say you are. Just keep doing what you're doing. So, it's great, man. It's the way I did it too, man. And especially it being in the Mecca of boxing, Madison Square Garden. I mean, that was just tremendous. It was a night to remember for sure.
It really was. And of course, what it has set up is this mega match with Vasily Lomachenko that you have coming up. And when you think about this fight, are you thinking in terms of it being it's an amazing opportunity to announce yourself even further to boxing fans and other people, but are you thinking it could also almost be something that can end up being a little bit historic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely historic. I mean, you have two fighters that are going in to become, one is going to come out undisputed world champion, winner takes all, and not only that, their head coaches are fathers.
Yeah, good point.
So it's a father and son duo match, on both ends. Vasily Lomachenko and his father, he's been trained by his father his whole life. Myself, I've been trained by my father my whole life, and we're only 15 fights in, him and I both. The only difference is that Lomachenko has definitely more championships due to the fact that he's a two-time Olympic gold medalist. He was able to have that faster route. But it's a tremendous fight, and I think everybody definitely needs to tune in to watch this. This is for all the marbles, and this is definitely going to be a historic night. Just us being in that ring, that moment is going to be right there alone historic.
Your dad says the fight will end within 3 rounds, that you will hit him with a power shot, and it's going to change the tenor of the fight. Now, I know you've talked about really wanting to get a knockout in this match. How important is it for you to try to get that knockout, and how much will that be in your thinking?
The thing is that I don't think about the knockout. We say a lot of things. I can say a lot that hey, I'm gonna knock this guy out.
You guys have been known to be not exactly inhibited.
Of course, you're not. The thing is, I can say a lot of things. And how the sport goes. Anything can happen. One punch can change the fight. A lot of things like that. But of course, I'm always gonna be determined on the fact that I can definitely hurt a fighter. And if that time comes where I hurt Lomachenko, I'm going to continue that pace and continue to see what else can I do to hurt him more, to where if the fight ever comes to a close where he can't no longer stand up, then of course, I'm gonna take that opportunity. But I never go into a fight already thinking about the knockout, because when you think about it, 9 out of 10 times you don't get it. So, I think of it as we're preparing ourselves for the 12 rounds. Whether it goes to the decision or not, my whole thing is we sticking to what I know, my game plan, and we see what Lomachenko brings October 17th.
One of the things that one of your weapons is the powerful right hand. You have a amazingly powerful right hand. It's what hurt Richard Comey early in the fight. And Lomachenko was knocked down by a right hand by Jorge Linares. Do you expect the right hand to be a big weapon in this fight?
One thing that a lot of fighters I think they may not know is that I love southpaws. I truly, truly admire and love to fight and face southpaws because this is my right hand is all day. It's like the lottery. I'm just tagging it up all day. So
yeah.
Of course, I think that is definitely going to be one of my main attributes to win this fight. Definitely my right hand and stuff like that. So just to be able to do all those things, and we see what happens. We see what I can and cannot do against Lomachenko. I expect myself to do everything that I have in my mind to do, and that's what it comes to. But yeah, I don't see how someone like myself, I'm not only just powerful, I'm fast and explosive. A lot of people see that in a second, you'll see me just come with a sharp, a fast hook or something like that, and it'll just stung them. So, I look at it as it's going to be a good match, definitely.
Yeah, and by mentioning the right hand, it's wrong for people to get the impression that you're a one-dimensional right-handed puncher. You have a great left hook, and you have a lot of other weapons. It's just that right hand is special. So this fight really is fascinating because from your standpoint, you're 23 years old, and you've had a very wonderful amateur career. You've been skyrocketing as a pro, though not overnight. You've had to work through all the levels as a professional. And here you are at age 23 on the precipice of winning what could be one of the most major fights of the last 5 or 6 years for sure.
Wow.
If you get to that summit, how do you think that's going to feel?
I'm probably not going to see it for like 2-3 days. I'll be honest. Just so I can soak it in and take all that in. Because one thing I always put in my mind is the moment I go to bed after the fight, it's the night, it's a new day, and it's already forgotten, but I think of it as it's definitely going to be one to remember. I'm very thankful, though. I honestly am. I'm very thankful and very grateful for the fact that I had this opportunity, at a young age, and to know that I'm at the cusp of becoming a megastar. Those are the things, are the key points that I'm looking at as well. But most importantly, the passion that I have for the sport, something I always dreamt about, and the fact that it's right here, I'm very thankful.
Do you think that people don't some people have a one-dimensional view of you because you're so flamboyant and you're so competitive?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But the thing is that you also got to think about it. I've only been in the pro game for maybe 3.5 years. Right. So you really haven't seen much of Teofimo yet. You haven't really gotten to see.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we've seen Lomachenko at least for the past 7-8 years. So we've seen Lomachenko at his best, at his worst, at his so-so. So I still have those years to develop.
It's a really good point. So you have years left to shape, not that what other people think is the be all and end all, but you have years to shape how you evolve. And after all, we all evolve as human beings all the time, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. We do. My mind is definitely from when I was 16 and I thought about what I wanted in my life to 23 now, a lot of things have definitely changed, mentally, physically. I'm at 135 pounds and still, 7 years in still. And to know that I'm only getting bigger, I'm getting into that I'm starting to finally have facial hair, things like that. So I'm starting to evolve and grow with time. And the fact that I'm just, I'm still 23 years young and only 3.5 years in the game. That's why my thing is that people haven't seen anything and everything yet. How am I able to display everything that I can do just in 2 rounds? You know what I mean? So, so I'm very thankful, and I hope that we get to have a great fight. That way we get to showcase to the fans that what they deserve, and it's supposed to be a great, amazing fight.
All right. Well, you've had quite a journey, that's for sure, and this is the peak of it. I know you're the last couple years that journey has become better and even smoother because of your wife Cynthia, who's come on board. Has she provided you with a lot of additional stability, and has she helped you enjoy these moments?
Yes, absolutely. Being with my wife now, I got married at a young age, of course, 21 years old, and not a lot of people would do that. They tell you, hey, enjoy your youth and go out there and a lot of things, but I don't have to follow the same path that many others may have done. I do things the way I want to. I do it my way, like Frank Sinatra, and that's just how I come to, and the fact that I'm very thankful. I know who I have around. And for my wife, Cynthia, she's definitely helped me throughout this course and actually has helped me grow throughout the process, not just as, me as a fighter, I'm still growing, of course, but as a person outside of the sport, as a human being, we are more than an athlete. So, just being able to have the opportunity and have someone like that to support me, to cheer me up. She knows I'm my worst critic. She knows I'm very hard on myself. So she tries to find ways to at least let me know and to remind myself that I am still doing something good.
Well, you're doing a lot good, and best of luck to you in this very, very historic match against Vasily Lomachenko. I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me.
No, thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to many more.
Indeed. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So I enjoyed my chat with Teofimo Lopez, and interestingly, that was the first interview I've ever done with him, and it was intriguing. He was a very interesting young man, and I think, he's potentially on a road to superstardom. And, he's taking a big chance in facing Vasily Lomachenko at this juncture in his career, but good for him. And if somehow it doesn't work out and he doesn't win that fight, he shouldn't be penalized. He's a super talented 23-year-old, and there's many, many great lightweights for him to face. And, boxing needs to take its cue from MMA. If you're an exciting fighter, get fights.
Yeah, I really enjoyed last week's show, Al, where you talked about that very specific topic, that in MMA you can have a couple losses and still get the big fights, whereas in boxing they always want that goose egg. And
there's been a little bit less of a tendency, but still it's there, and it's a difficult thing.
Yeah. Well, hey, by the way, we've got someone new that we're working with. Your guest from a couple weeks ago, Tom Yankello, who does those amazing YouTube videos on the art of boxing, is going to be airing our show on his website, and we're going to be promoting him, and I'm excited to be working with him.
Yeah, Tom has the World Class Boxing channel. And one of the things that's unique about that channel is, I said to him when I interviewed him, when I was a young amateur boxer back in the Stone Age, I would have loved to, they didn't even have an internet, of course, but if they had, I would have loved to have seen a channel like that, because he's got all these great instructional videos. And if you're an amateur boxer, or even if you just enjoy the sport of boxing, they're actually very intriguing, because oftentimes he's talking about the styles of different fighters and how they do different things. So it's entertaining and instructional, and especially for people involved in the sport. He really has some great videos, so you should check that out on YouTube. It's exceptional, and he was a great guest. And of course, he'll be working in the corner of Roy Jones Jr., assuming that his fight with Mike Tyson comes off, which it's supposed to happen in November.
Is that an editorial comment right there?
I'm simply allowing for the possibility of slippage, as my good friend Phil Daly used to say when he sold. He used to sell siding. He said sometimes there might be a little slippage in there,
That sums up the sport of boxing sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, well, we've got another question, and it is so nice when people are so generous of their time and expertise. Floyd Mayweather Jr. has offered to train Wilder for the third furry fight. Easy for me to say. How much can Mayweather add to Wilder's game in just a few months?
Yeah, Joe Goosen was on our show here some months ago, and he made the point that there was time for Deontay Wilder from the time of the last Fury fight, even including the pandemic in which, there wasn't always a chance to train, but clearly people could work on things. They reached a point where you could work on things. He said they needed to get right back in the gym and fix things, and that there was enough time for him to even learn new things, enhance who he is, etc. But that time is gone now. That time has gone away. Now, whether he did that or not, we don't know. We know that he fired his trainer, Mark Breland, his co-trainer, and JD's is left. And we don't know if he's going to add somebody else, let alone Floyd Mayweather. That fight is probably not going to be held in December. Maybe it actually could be earlier because it was December 19th. Now it could be held earlier in December, or it would be pushed to January. So the time frame isn't as huge as it was. And if I was forced to give an opinion on whether it's better to go find another trainer, see what you can do in 3 months to kind of tweak things and whatever, I don't know if it just doesn't make more sense for him to go with JD's, who has been there working with him, and bring somebody in just to be helpful, and just go with the horses that brung you, even though one of the horses that brung you isn't there anymore, Mark Breland, who is a very talented trainer. I don't know. It's a very tricky dilemma. And somebody like Floyd Mayweather, who I believe is going to get more and more interested in training. I think could be a passion for him. But I don't know if bringing them in at the short notice makes sense.
So, quick question for you. Of boxers who had great careers and then became trainers, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, very few great boxers have become trainers. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad is one of the very few champions who became a great trainer. There have been very, very few great champions. Isn't that strange? You'd think it's no different than, a lot of great players didn't become managers for a long period of time, or great hitting instructors. And people always point to Ted Williams and say that, his results in both cases were mixed, even though he was one of the greatest hitters of all time. Part of it was he couldn't understand why people couldn't do what he did. There have been very few great champions that became great trainers. Eddie is one of the very few.
And Mark Breland was a very accomplished fighter during his time.
Well, Mark would be an example, but Mark was a great amateur. He was a good pro,
yep.
But he wasn't a great pro. He did win a world championship, and he was certainly a brilliant amateur
and a good actor.
Yes, that's right. He was also an actor.
Yeah. So you and I go way back with our references.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Oh well.
We date ourselves.
So, could you talk about the Norton Holmes historic legendary heavyweight championship match, and then a second part, which we might get to first, then I'll remind you of the first, or a dream fight between Foreman and Holmes in their primes?
Okay, who sent us that one?
Oh, that was Paul Driscoll. I'm sorry. I get $1 from Paul every time I mention his name.
This is for Paul. Well, the Norton Holmes fight, which I went to covering it for Boxing Illustrated magazine many, many years ago, was one of the best heavyweight championship fights, I think, of all time. And they battled for 15 rounds. It came down literally to the last round. The first part of the fight, Holmes controlled. In round 6, I think it was, Kenny Norton looked at Bill Slayton, his manager, and he said, "Now it's my turn." And in fact, the middle rounds, Kenny Norton really turned it up. We got to round 15, and they produced a round 15 that is one of the best rounds of boxing you will ever see. And so when you're done here, and only when you're done here, go on YouTube and find that round of boxing. It's extraordinary. I thought Kenny Norton won the 15th round, and it came down to that. Had he gotten it onto the scorecards, he would have won by 1 point. He ended up losing by 1 point to the scorecards, I believe. And it was an extraordinary fight. And Holmes took Kenny Norton's world championship. And of course, Larry Holmes, a terrific fighter who went on to have a great reign as champion. But those two men produced an astonishing fight. Lyle and he wants to talk about Lyle and Foreman also.
Yeah, Foreman Holmes. If that fight.
Oh, Foreman Holmes. Oh,
Yeah.
About the idea of it never happening.
Yeah.
Huh?
If in their primes.
Well, yeah. Now George was out for a while. When Larry was in his prime, George wasn't fighting for quite a while. But then when George came back, I mean, they could have fought. The timing wasn't perfect for them, and it never seemed to be the right time and the right moment for those two fighters to get together, both in terms of when he was away from the sport and then when he came back. Holmes was older. It could have happened, but somehow it just never did.
Yeah, and just on a personal aside, if you could go to any fight, would you rather cover it as a journalist and not announce it so you can enjoy it more, or would you rather be calling the fight? Which is better for you?
That's a good question. Now, I think if I was going to go to that's a really good question. I think if I was going to, let's say I could all of a sudden go back in time and be at the Johnson Jeffries fight. Of course, they didn't have. I don't think they didn't have radio or TV for that, of course, or something along those lines. I think I'd rather be a crowd member with a good seat, hopefully, and kind of just enjoy it. I think that would be more fun than working it, because then you truly can sit back and take in the moment and enjoy it.
As a print journalist, how do you, when you were covering for the magazines early in your career, do you do things differently? Do you write notes? How do you do that?
Yeah, I just made notes, on as the fight went on, and little extra, and then you take them all together and put together your story on it, and then of course you do the quotes afterwards where you interview people. But yeah, you and that too, you're not just sitting there as a fan, you're busy taking your notes and getting ready to do your story. So there's plenty to do.
Yeah. And then our final question, Jason Archuleta asked, Al, talk about that crazy scene in Puerto Rico. Didn't you get hit by a water bottle?
Yeah, that was the first fight between Juan Manuel Lopez and Orlando Salido, who, by the way, Orlando Salido actually holds a win over Vasily Lomachenko in a foul-infested fight in which Salido fought a very dirty fight, but ended up getting a decision in I think the second fight Lomachenko fought as a pro. He's fighting Orlando Salido, which is amazing. But Orlando Salido, this was when he won the title, featherweight title, against Juan Manuel Lopez. Juan Manuel Lopez was a big star, and we went to Puerto Rico and for this fight, and it was very exciting. The match was extremely exciting, and then Salido started really taking control. And when the referee stopped the fight, though I believe Salido probably would have knocked him out, maybe later that round, maybe in another round. I mean, Lopez was really hurt. But the stoppage was a teensy bit short, or quick, I should say. And of course, these were Puerto Rican fans who are watching their hero. They think kind of get deprived of his chance to maybe come back in the fight. And of course, things erupted, and as often is the case, items started being thrown at the ring. As I said in my book, when fans get mad, they pick up whatever the nearest thing they can: water bottles, sandwiches, their spouses, anybody, and throw them at the ring. And we were sitting there, and I was doing a replay of the knockout, and ironically, I was saying that it might have been just a little bit quick. And right around that same time, I got hit right here with a full water bottle. So I understand that. I'm assuming they were not aiming for me. I'd like to believe that they were just distressed. And so I got, that big cut opened up, and I was like dazed. And so I was like, I took my headphones off, and I was like sitting back trying to gain my perspective. And Gus Johnson, who was doing the play-by-play, who's given the theatrics anyway, said, "My partner has been hit." So, like I'd been hit by a sniper rifle or something. And And so we got through the broadcast. We were right toward the end. Now, here's the funny thing. You'll appreciate this being in television, and maybe other people will understand how single-minded the purpose becomes when you're doing TV. I got done with the show, and I used to do these wrap-ups that would look back at for the internet and for other places for Showtime. We look back at the fights. Well, I've got a big gash above my right eye, and I'm woozy. And the young assistant to the guy that does all the features and everything comes up to me and said, "Okay, are you ready to do the recap of the fight?" I looked at him and I said, "Do I look like I'm ready to do a recap of the fight?" "No, I'm not ready to do I said, "I don't think I'm going to be ready the rest of this evening to do a recap of the fight, because I'm just going to go over here and see if I can stop the bleeding on my forehead and see if I remember my name." So they were disappointed that I couldn't do the recap.
Did Showtime travel with a cut man? I mean, from then on in? I mean,
no, there was no. I managed to. It turned out it didn't need any stitches, even though it was a pretty good cut. But so yeah, and I got a lot of response from Puerto Rican fans who heard about it, and they were so distressed. But I said, "No, don't worry, I'm not angry at you. You got mad because your guy didn't get." But the irony of it was I was agreeing with them when I got hit with the bottle. So anyway, this has been a fun show, and next week we will have Leo Santa Cruz on the show, and he's going to talk about his upcoming fight with Gervonta Davis. And that's set for October 31st. And, I'm open to any suggestions. If any of you want to send me a tweet at Al Bernstein, if you think you have an idea for some tasteful way in which I can look like I have a costume on, that's going to have to be very tasteful, because I don't think Showtime's going to go for full costumes. But since it's on Halloween, I can't wear a mask. I don't think that would work, but maybe something in my lapel, maybe to,
Well,
or
I think you should ride into the shot. I think recreate that from many years ago.
Yeah, that would be good. Should talk them into it. I'll see if I can resurrect that Western tux I used to wear and put it on.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll enjoy seeing you. And a reminder to you also, please make sure you frequent our television version of Al Bernstein Unplugged, which is on the Fight Network, U2 America, 11 Sports, the Family Channel, the Action Channel, and many other outlets as well. So look for your local listings and check it out, and see if you can look at our TV show, which we're very proud of. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.